Hey guys, and welcome to Lesson 4, Dividing Decimals. You might have noticed that there's no Lesson 3. This is because we just did it in class last class. It was a really short one, so we just did it in class, not on video. Today we're looking at division. We've already done the long division in the review. So again, if this is a skill that you're still working on, make sure to come in for extra help at lunch or to watch some more videos and get some extra practice on it. With division, we're going to set it up the same as when we didn't have decimals. But now, if there's a decimal in the divisor, we need to do one extra step to make it work. So we've got 3 examples of that here. The very first one, 12.6 divided by 3. This one, when we set it up, since the divisor, this guy, doesn't have a decimal, we can set it up like normal. So the 3 goes on the outside, and the 12.6 goes inside the house. Now we solve it however we are comfortable. We've got 2 ways that we've been learning, dad, mother, sister, brother, and then the other one with the line. I'm going to solve this one using dad, mother, sister, brother, but if you prefer using the line down the side, then you can solve it that way. I will do one of the other questions in that manner as well. So when we're doing dad, mother, sister, brother, that stands for division, multiplication, subtraction, and bring down. We start by looking at the 3 and seeing if it fits into the 1. This is the division part. So 3 fits into 1 0 times. So we put the 0 above the 1. That's our division. Then we go for multiplication. 3 times 0 is 0. Then we go for subtraction. 1 minus 0 is 1. That's our subtraction. And then see if the 3 fits into the 1. 3 doesn't fit into the 1, so we have to go to B, bring down. 12. Does 3 fit into 12? Yes. 3 fits into 12 4 times. That's division. Multiplication. 3 times 4 is 12. That's our multiplication. Subtract. 12 minus 12 is 0. That's our subtraction. Now check. Does 3 fit into 0? No. So we need to bring down. Notice I've been ignoring the decimal place this entire time. 6 goes down like this. Then we check our division. Does 3 fit into 6? Yes. 2 times. That's our division. Multiplication. 3 times 2 is 6. Subtraction. 6 take away 6 is 0. Does 3 fit into 0? No. And there's no other numbers to bring down. So we're done with this question. Very last step is to insert our decimal. Our decimal is here in the question, so it's here in the answer. So 12.6 divided by 3 is 4.2. For the second problem, we can see that in our divisor, there is a decimal place. There's a really easy way to get rid of this though. We can do it with the decimal, but it's a little bit more complicated. So instead, we're going to move the decimal to the end so that this number becomes 13. But what we do to one number, we also have to do to the other number. So in the 16.9, since we moved it with 1 out in the 1.3, we move it 1 out in the 16.9. So this becomes 169. And when we move that decimal, it doesn't necessarily mean that in the dividend, the one in the middle, that it's going to remove the decimal every time. It just might move it over 1 space, but you'd still have a decimal. As long as this number doesn't have a decimal anymore, you're good. Now that neither of them have a decimal, we can set it up. 13 on the outside, 169 on the inside. So now we'll try the other method. And in the other method, we draw a line down the side. So if you're doing dad, mother, sister, brother, you could pause the video and try that out on your own and then check it in with the answer afterwards. In this method, on the right side of the green line, we're going to choose a number. It's a number that 13 is going to be multiplied by that will result in something less than 169. Usually safe bets to start with are 10s, 5s, 2s to make the number easier to work with. I'm going to start with 10. Because I know that 13 times 10 is going to give me 130. So I multiplied the 13 by the 10 on the outside, which got me 130. And then I subtract. 9 minus 0 is 9, 6 minus 3 is 3, 1 minus 1 is 0. So I'm left with 39. If I was to put a 10 on the outside again, I wouldn't be able to take away another group of 130 from 39. That's too big. So I have to choose something a little bit smaller. Maybe I know my multiplication tables really well, and I know that 39 is divisible by 13. Maybe I don't. So I'm going to choose a number that's smaller, that can still work. I'm going to go with 2. 13 times 2 is 26. This number fits into the 39, which means that I'm able to subtract them nicely. 9 minus 6 is 3, and 3 minus 2 is 1. Now that I end up with the same number that I have as the number that I'm dividing by, I can choose 1 as my final outside number, because my result is always to get to the 0. Just like it was over here to get to 0, we want to get to 0 on our new one. So I've put the 1 on the outside because 13 times 1 will give me 13, and I subtract these and I get 0, which is the goal. For our very last step, to figure out what's going to go on the top, what's going to be our answer, we're going to add the ones on the outside. 10 plus 2 plus 1 is 13. So the answer to this is 13. 169 divided by 13 is 13. And if you check it out in your calculator, 16.9 divided by 1.3 is also going to give us 13. Pretty cool. For this very last question, the difference here is that in our divisor, there's a 0 in the front. This doesn't change much because it's still a decimal number. It will change something when we go to estimate, which will be on the next page. But right here, still a decimal number, still going to move it out. We need to remove that decimal place from here. And since we removed it only by hopping over one number, we're only going to have to hop over one number in our 2.4 as well. So 2.4 becomes 24 divided by, and the 0.6 becomes 6. And we can probably do this one in our head, but we're going to set it up anyways. The 6 on the outside and the 24 on the inside. If I do dad, mother, sister, brother, then I get 6 fitting into the 2 0 times. 6 times 0 is 0. Subtract those to get 2. Then we have to bring down the 4 because 6 doesn't fit into 2. 6 fits into 24 4 times. 6 times, oops, I did the bring down. 6 times 4 is 24. 24 minus 24 is 0. And we've ended up with 0 at the bottom, so that means that is our final answer. There's no decimal places anywhere in this 24, which means that I don't have a decimal place in the answer. The answer is just 4. Just below this, we have a Now You Try. There are 4 questions in Now You Try. Solve them exactly as you did in the question above. So pause the video now and give that a try. For the second part, it's estimating. We already know the rules behind front-end estimation and rounding estimation, so this is just applying it to our division now. Our first one is front-end estimation, 32.6 divided by 3. A reminder that front-end estimation is taking the front number and turning all the numbers behind it into 0. So in our first one, the first number is 3, and then the 2 becomes a 0, decimal, the 6 becomes a 0, divided by 3. Because 3 is the only number there, it is the front number, and no other numbers need to turn into 0. Remember that front-end estimation, it doesn't matter what number comes after the first number. If it's a very big number or a small number, it turns to 0. 30 divided by 3. We could set this one up, but we can also do this one in our head. 3 fits into 30 10 times. For rounding to the nearest whole number, 16.4 divided by 0.7, we're going to round them first, and then if we need to move the decimals, we will. If we're rounding to the nearest whole, this means to the nearest ones. We're getting rid of our decimals. So I'm going to round to the 6th place. I look at the 4. The 4 tells me the 6 has to stay the same. Since the 1 is in front of the 6, it remains. The 6 stays the same because the 4 told it to. Then we have our decimal, and the 4 turns into a 0. For our second one, the nearest whole means that the ones column, the 0, is the one that's going to either change or stay the same. When we look to its neighbor, the number on the right, the 7 tells us, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that the 0 is going to go up by 1. Everything to the right of that number, that includes the 7, is going to turn into a 0. 16 divided by 1 is 16. See how much easier it is to use our estimation in division. A lot of the times we can just use our mental math, but our calculation is more exact. If we scroll down to the Now You Try, you guys are going to be trying these out on your own, but I've indicated this little note down here. It's a bit of a tricky one, so we will go through it in class, of course, before our quiz. When this divisor is a decimal, and we're looking at doing this in front-end estimation, we have to choose the first digit that's not a 0. So 0.5 will not turn into 0. We won't do 25 divided by 0. We can't divide by 0. So we're only going to be doing 25 divided by 0.5 and using the same rules that we had before. And that's it. So try out those 4 last questions. We'll be checking them next class. Reminder, you have an entry quiz at the start of our next math class together, just like we've been doing, that follow the same format as the Now You Try section questions. If this lesson wasn't enough or you need more practice or want extra questions, then there's links either in the video description or on our Google Classroom. Have a good night, and we will see you tomorrow.